Well, I would like to start to introduce myself. First of all, thank you for having me here to introduce you into the topic hydrogen a little bit, and then give you an overview what Fronius is doing in this field of technology. And I want to start to introduce myself. My name is Richard Schuster. I'm the responsible product manager here at Fronius for our hydrogen solutions. And I joined the company in 2018. There we started to commercialize the decentralized hydrogen production infrastructure. Started to commercialize it onto professionalize it in a more deeper way. Before that, it was more a research and development topic. First of all, I want to do the traditional beginnings of presentation, give a short introduction of the company. Then I want to dive in the topic hydrogen. Why is it needed? And why is it important for the energy transition? And then I want to conclude with our activities. All right. Fronius, the company. Actually, last year we celebrated our 75th birthday. So we were founded directly after the Second World War by Günther Fronius in Petenbach in Upper Austria. Then 1980, his son Klaus Fronius took over, and then in the 2010, his niece, Mrs. Engelbrecht Müller-Strauß, took over. And since then, we are a family-owned company with our main headquarters in Upper Austria. Fronius in figures, around 6,000 employees worldwide with a turnover of 850 millions. We own over 1,000 patents in different categories. 740 employees only in the research and development department. This is probably the reason why we are quite an innovative company. And we are a quite export-orientated company. So 93% of our goods and products and services are sold to countries worldwide. And we are active in 32 countries. Fronius consists of 3 business units. In the middle, you can see the perfect charging, which was the first business unit founded centuries ago by our founder Günther Fronius. Then the second business unit established was the perfect welding on the right-hand side. And on the left-hand side, the youngest company, the solar energy department, which was founded around in the 80s. Exactly. A deeper dive into the business unit solar energy. Here are some rough figures. We have installed 21 gigawatts of inverter power since we are active, which equals to 2.4 million installed inverters worldwide. These inverters produce around 30 terawatt hours of energy and are installed in 60 countries. Actually, the installed power equals to around 23 nuclear power plants. And when you think of a power plant with an average power of 900 megawatts, the produced energy equals to 4.12 nuclear power plants, what we substitute with solar energy. So we are quite proud of that numbers. So, and then enough of our company, because I think you already know us quite well. I want to talk about hydrogen. And as you probably know, hydrogen has faced already several hypes. In the 70s, in the 80s, around 2000. And the main question is it now again the next hype, the fourth hype about hydrogen, or is it a more deeper understanding of the hydrogen topic itself? Here again, some details about the hydrogen hypes. In the 70s, there was the oil price shock, petroleum shortages, and due to these shortages and due to the rising attention to air pollution and the acid rain back then, the first attention arise to hydrogen. But this faded away as new oil and gas reserves was found, and also emission control measurements was installed in the power plants as well as the waste incineries. Then again in the 19th, further concerns about climate change, more interest especially for the car manufacturers. Maybe you remember cars from BMW or Mercedes, where they developed the first hydrogen vehicles, which had liquid hydrogen as a fuel. But again, this didn't consist this hype because oil prices still stayed low. And again, something similar in around the millennium. Again, some more attention about the climate change, but there we faced again the chicken egg problem, and also hydrogen was only focused on the mobility case. But now in the 2000s, we are quite advanced, or more advanced, because we think of hydrogen in a more holistic way. So there's one driver of this behavior is the increased awareness of climate change and public pressure, especially due to the Paris Agreement, where the countries of the world said we want to limit the global warming to 2 degrees until 2100. Now we are already talking about below 1.5 degrees. And of course, the growing attention in the public, especially due to the Fridays for Future movement. Then when we think about the energy transition, we have a hard-to-abate sector, which we simply cannot electrify with pure electricity. So we need there a molecule, energy vector consisting of a molecule. And when we think about the energy transition, we have an increased share of volatiles in the energy mix, and we somehow need a solution to store this excess energy, what can be used at the moment when it's produced. So we need a energy storage technology. So actually, I do not want to talk a lot of why we do have climate change, because somehow I think this is already common sense that this is a problem. I just want to focus on the sectors, what we have to put our focus on. And this is mainly the transport sector, which uses fossil fuels, of course, industrial processes, and the agriculture, which are using fossil resources like natural gas or oil. And of course, the sectors which directly use fossil fuels like room heating, or gas plants to produce energy. So what needs to be done, and where can hydrogen make a contribution? So to do a decarbonization, on the one hand, and this is what you see on the left-hand side, we have to rethink our energy supply. Our energy supply right now is thought very centralistic. Energy supplied by a few big power plants, burning coal or burning fossil fuels. So, and due to the increased share of the renewable energy, we are getting to a more decentralistic energy system. And due to the volatility of these renewables, we need batteries. Furthermore, we see that we do not only talk about consumers, we also have to think about prosumers. And prosumers are people or entities. This could be a private household or a company as well, who are producing their own energy on the one hand, which is then fed into the grid, and are classical consumers who wants to withdraw energy from the grid when they cannot produce it by their own self. So this is on the one hand side, the supply side. And on the demand side, we have to think of the specific sectors in the transportation, in the building sectors, and in the industry and chemistry, which we have to decarbonize. Beside this, we need also a reduction of our energy demand, because if we do not save energy, our energy transition will fail completely. And I also mentioned here another big topics what we have to think about, but this is maybe for the future scenarios of the humanity. We also have to think about biodiversity of our land use and agriculture, but we are now focusing on the energy sector. So on the supply side, where can hydrogen make a contribution? This is what Austria wants to do till 2030. So Austria has set the target that our electricity system is completely decarbonized by 2030. And this, and what you can see here is that we have to extend our installed wind power by times 3 from 2.8 gigawatts to 9 gigawatts, and our installed PV from 1 to 12, so 12 times. So, and APG, this is the Austrian power grid operator who operates the transmission power lines at 380 kilowatts, have simulated how the system will probably look like in the future when we have installed this kind of renewable sources. And it looks like this. So we have extreme quarter-hour gradients, and we have quite a balance to the day to night, and we have a big seasonal shifting what we have to achieve. So during the summer month, this is the red circle in the middle, we have quite an excess of renewable energy, and somehow we have to bring this excess energy in the summer month to the spring and to the fall and winter, what you can see on the circles on the right side and the left side. And here on the left hand side, you see this 3 gigawatt gap in the extreme, which is an equal in energy terms of 5 terawatt hour, what we are missing then. And this simply means we need additional energy storages, because batteries, capacitors, flywheels, and whatever, or pump storage, power plants simply cannot store that amount of energy to shift it over the seasons. So here you can see a nice illustration about what energy technologies are suitable for storing that amount of energy over that period of time. And what becomes clear that the storage of that big amount of energy or power over seasons or weeks, hydrogen storage or other synthetic gases are suited best for that. So in the future, when we have a very distributed energy system with a lot of PV systems and a lot of wind systems, we need alternative storage technologies. Hydrogen at the demand side. The thing is that when we think of the electrification of our society to achieve the decarbonization, the electrification is the first pillar of our energy transition. But there are simple industries and applications what can't be electrified. So this can be seen here. So hydrogen can be a fuel for the transportation sector, where the normal battery electric vehicles aren't suitable for. We can use hydrogen as a heat for the high temperature processes in the industry, for steel, cement industry, or the paper industry. And hydrogen could also be a feedstock for the chemical industry. And what I have circled here in red, these are already traditional industries what are using hydrogen already since decades. But more to this on the next slide. This is an illustration where hydrogen is used today in 2020. And what you can see here is 65% of the hydrogen used today are used by captive processes. And this means hydrogen is produced on site and used directly as a feedstock. Typical examples for this are refineries. they use hydrogen for the hydrotreatment or hydrocracking of paraffins or for crude oil. Then the ammonia industry needs hydrogen to produce ammonia as a fertilizer. And we also need hydrogen for other chemicals like methanol. On the other side, we have hydrogen as a byproduct, which simply means it appears in coke oven gases or other chemical processes as a side product, but is then used further or simply eliminated or burned, or then is purchased to the merchant sector, where hydrogen is distributed as a gas for different other purposes. So, but what the purpose of this slide is, hydrogen is already used to a big extent in our economic system. So hydrogen transport, and this is always a very polarized discussion between the parties who believe strongly in battery electric vehicles and the other party who says, fuel cell mobility is the only true mobility. But the true thing is, it's not a either or, it's an and. So we need both. We need both. Why is this the case? And this is what this illustration should tell us. Battery electric mobility is very, very suitable because of the high efficiency for the typical private commuting purposes. For the private person who wants to do their commuting distances, wants to go for a day trip somewhere for leisure purposes and so on. But the longer the distance, the longer the distances become, the heavier the goods become to transport, or the longer I want to operate my transport car or my truck, the more the advantages are arising from the battery electric vehicles. And the truth is that we need electricity for the battery electric vehicles, but we need hydrogen then for the heavy duty applications in the transport sector. And this is mainly because of this. Batteries are really, really heavy. So what you can see here is the propulsion technology of a diesel system, of a hydrogen system, and of a battery electric vehicle. And to store the energy to drive 500 kilograms with a battery electric vehicle, you have to install a system with a weight of 440 kilograms. And at all, also in sum, for the 440 kilograms for the battery cells and 210 kilograms for the whole apparatus. So in sum, 650 kilograms to drive 500 kilometers. And when this is compared to a fuel cell electric vehicle, we only have to add 126 kilograms. The benchmark is, of course, the diesel, but I think everyone is now aware that the diesel will become to an end in the next decades. So, and when I think of transportation purposes, when I want to do this with the battery electric vehicles, we lose simply payload. And the costs will rise for certain transportation modes if we cannot load goods in it as good as in fuel cell electric vehicles. So the advantages of hydrogen trucks are that we have a higher payload and we can achieve a higher duty operation with fuel cell electric vehicles. This is what you can see in the comparison. So as an example given, if you're thinking of a truck with a payload of 5.2 tons, with battery electric vehicles, we lose 44% of goods what they can simply deliver from A to B. Good. With fuel cell electric vehicles, we have also more flexibility on specific routes. So here's a comparison of buses. Ones are running with battery, others are running with diesel, and the third option is running with hydrogen. The inner circle are the costs at the moment. So the cheapest one are diesel buses, The next economic option are battery electric buses. Partial means that they are partial load, so they are always loading at specific bus stops. And battery full means they are loaded once when they are in the hub again, overnight, for example. And then the fuel cell electric bus. So the advantage of battery is, of course, we have no noise. And the blue bar is they are emission free, but they are quite limited in the route mapping. On the other hand, hydrogen electric buses, they have a high range. With them, I can do an easy map routing, so I can use the bus for the line A. I could also use it for the line B. And I have also the advantages of the battery electric vehicles. Nevertheless, hydrogen fuel buses are still very expensive compared to battery electric buses. But in future, there will be a mixture of two technologies in the cities. If you want to operate a line with battery electric buses, it can be done, of course, and it also makes sense. But then with this bus, I cannot operate on longer distances. So I need flexibility, and this is why hydrogen electric buses are more suitable to this. So to sum it up, especially for the transportation use case, I need hydrogen where I have a high payload, where I have a high duty cycle for the vehicles, where I need to achieve a high mileage, where I have a high energy demand, especially for garbage trucks, for example, where I have in the back the hydraulic press to compress the garbage, or where I need a high flexibility in logistics or buses, for example. All right. Where does hydrogen come from by energy carrier today? I think this is also quite well known that hydrogen today is coming from SMA, steam methane reforming. So simply the basic feedstock is natural gas. And unfortunately, only a very small percentage is already produced by electrolysis like alkaline electrolysis or PEM electrolysis. And this is also what we have to change also in future to produce green hydrogen. And you probably heard about the different hydrogen colors, I suppose. So I want to give you an overview about that. I've called it the hydrogen rainbow because I'm always surprised which colors we find in the next week or in the next month. So what's quite common is the gray hydrogen. The energy carrier or the basic feedstock for gray hydrogen is natural gas, and hydrogen produced out of natural gas has a moderate CO2 impact. Then politics and society is discussing around green hydrogen. The basic energy carrier is simply to a major part electricity coming from renewables, but it can also be biomass. The next thing is called, on the top left, blue hydrogen. It's simply gray hydrogen. It's produced from natural gas, but the CO2 which appears in the process is captured and stored. This is blue hydrogen. Then we have cyan hydrogen. This is where the basic feedstock is natural gas, but the technology which is used is pyrolysis. And due to this process, the carbon in the natural gas appears as a solid. So you can use this then. You can use it then for other purposes, for a master batch, for example, in the chemical industry, or you can use it for other purposes. Then pink hydrogen is discussed also quite a lot. It's also created with electrolysis, but the electrical energy is coming from nuclear power. And then we have as well brown hydrogen or black hydrogen. The origin of this hydrogen is coal. And there are natural resources of hydrogen within the earth crust, and this is the white hydrogen, but this is not accessible for for humanity. Well, so a lot of people are asking why is Fronius dealing with hydrogen? Why are we active in this field? And this is mainly because of our vision. We have a vision in our business unit Solar Energy, which is called 24 Hours of Sun. And there we simply believe of a society which completely runs on renewable energy. And for this solar energy, for this vision, we produce products and solutions. So we started with an inverter who is capable to transform direct current from photovoltaic generators to alternating current to use it directly on site for electrical devices, or as an excess energy to feed it into the grid. This was the first start of our business unit. Then we thought, okay, let's go more into the sector coupling. First of all, of course, let's store it. Then we can use it at a later stage, and we do not have to withdraw it from the grid at an expensive price. Then the next step, what we started is to do the sector coupling to achieve a higher utilization rate within an entity to access the heating sector with the product OwnPilot, which is more or less an intelligent relay, which is switching a heating rod, and to access the e-mobility sector with a wall box called OwnPilot, Wattpilot. And then the next step, what we thought about is about the long-term storage and to access as well the hydrogen applications. And this is where then the electrolyzer and the fuel cell comes into place. So if we have still energy left, we want to operate an electrolyzer, split water into hydrogen and oxygen, store the hydrogen in a hydrogen storage, and use it then directly for emission-free mobility, or use it at a later stage for the re-electrification. In both processes, we generate, unfortunately, waste heat. But if you produce hydrogen on-site, you can also use it for local heating purposes. So the original idea of the son of our founder, of Klaus Fronius, he was quite a visionary, or he is quite a visionary person. He always thought about the long-term storage. We need an alternative to batteries. And this is why we started already in 2002 with our hydrogen activities in the research and development department. So we were quite active in the different fields. So we did research and projects for mobile fuel cells and stationary fuel cells. So we developed a boat with an Austrian boat manufacturer, a fuel cell boat. But we have been also active in wine to hydrogen, where we installed in Austria directly at a wine farm our electrolyzers to produce hydrogen and to feed it into the grid, into the gas grid. In 2014, we have built in Wels a self-sufficient house with the excess energy of the photovoltaic. We produced in a high-pressure electrolysis hydrogen, stored it in the backyard in a tank, and used it during the hours where the photovoltaic doesn't feed enough energy. And our last success is, of course, the SOLHUB, what we are commercializing since 2018. And in 2020, we've created the project Heisno, where we produced in the mountains hydrogen for using it in the snow sports. Now to the Fronius SOLHUB. This is the first version of the Fronius SOLHUB. What does it? It simply allows customers to produce their own energy carrier hydrogen on site by using their local energy resources and by using, of course, grid energy. We use here a PEM electrolyzer, which produces hydrogen at around 30 bars. Then we compress it up to to 400 bars, or in a further stage to 900 bars, and give it then back to hydrogen vehicles. Another option is to use it in a fuel cell, which is also installed in here for re-electrification at the later stage. This is the first version. This is the more or less the feasibility study, if we can handle the process, if we can handle the erection, and if the system is reliable. Here you can see more or less a block diagram how it works. So we use on the one hand grid energy, and on the other hand renewable energy to produce hydrogen with the electrolyzer, store it at different pressure levels depending on what kind of vehicle you want to refuel, and then use it either in the emission-free transportation sector or to re-electrify it at a later stage. And the waste heat, of course, can be used for local heating purposes. And this is only possible, of course, if you do the electrolysis and the re-electrification on-site directly at the customer. So the main features of the SOLHUB, it's an adaptive system. First of all, a modular system. So it consists of different modules. So if the use case of the customer is emission-free transportation, we install him an electrolyzer, for example, and then a 350 bar refueling system. But if the customer wants to add at the later stage, 1 year later or a few years later, as well refueling for cars which are running on a higher pressure level, 700 bars, we can add this feature at the later stage. Furthermore, we can also add waste heat extraction at the later stage or a fuel cell for the re-electrification. So we simply put the whole SOLHUB module together like a puzzle, like the customer wants to have it. A further feature of our SOLHUB is that we can grow with the hydrogen demand of the customer. So we can start at 24 kilograms per day up to 194 kilograms per day and container. This is our first approach within one container size. We are now thinking already of going into bigger capacities, because we see especially the demand for emission-free public transportation requires a lot more hydrogen produced per day. So the main advantage is you can produce your own hydrogen on site. You are not you do not rely on vendors, on hydrogen vendors who bring the hydrogen to you, which are linked to quite high transportation costs. You can achieve a sector integration on site because you can use the waste heat utilization, and you can do the re-electrification for your own company. If you're, I don't know, for blackout scenarios, or for peak shaving, for example, or for seasonal storage of the hydrogen. And the big advantage is the requirements. You simply need a water connection and a mains connection. I told you that the SOLHUB you've seen on a few slides before was our first version, and this is the second version, what we are erecting right now. And this is done in Steinhaus in Upper Austria as well, at our Hydrogen Competence Center. There we did this installment, advanced version of the SOLHUB. And now it looks like this. This picture was taken 2 weeks before, and we will start operation next month. What we also do is a customer project in Lower Austria, 100 kilograms per day nominal production for refueling internal vehicle pool, as well as an external bus. It's intended there. The erection will start in November, and the initial startup is planned for beginning of Q2 in 2020. Yes. And this was, in a nutshell, in a summary, my presentation. And I think we have now enough time for questions.
Já, gott fólk. Ekki einhverja spurningar hjá okkur? Engar spurningar. There are no questions.
No questions.
Apparently, but a little bit about Iceland. What we are thinking. Here in Iceland, in the domestic sector, we are close to 100% renewable energy, which is for heating, it's geothermal, and for lighting and electricity, it is hydropowered. It's close to 100%, but you always have some places that you cannot use those, and some situations also. But what they are thinking now is to produce hydrogen in or close to one power station here in Iceland with 10 megawatts power station, which is a hydro power station, and then export it to Europe. And then, of course, they have a lot of potential to extend it, because it will always depend on the demand. How much do you want?
Of course,
and,
yes.
And then the good thing is also you can always adjust your production according to the demand, not in a very cheap way.
Just wanted to add, this is also a challenge for project developers, because especially when thinking of green hydrogen, you have to adjust the supply side and demand side, because nobody needs a 5 megawatt or 15 megawatt electrolyzer when nobody can use the hydrogen, where you simply do not have the vehicles using it, or you have the customers. So the electrolysis will run only for several hours a year.
Yeah, but then of course we're always thinking about innovation, and especially during the domestic cars. We have been going a lot into battery cars, but maybe that is not the correct way, or maybe it will be a mixed way with fuel cells, batteries, cars, or etc. We are simply not sure. We have a lot of ships in Iceland, and fishing vessels, and because of how much power they need diesel fuel, and but we could make a mix, so that let's say we call it the auxiliary engines. They would be run on hydrogen, but the main engine is on diesel, and with a shaft generator, if we run out of hydrogen, we can produce hydrogen for the auxiliary engines. So there are a lot of possibilities, and a lot of things that are going through our mind. But as always, it will be the money that decides where things will be.
Yes, from my perception, the future energy carrier for different transportation purposes will differ. So I'm quite sure that for the private person, a battery electric car is quite sufficient. But when I'm thinking of heavy duty applications like big vessels, or yellow goods like construction site, heavy duty vehicles, or when I'm thinking of heavy trains, I'm quite in doubt or planes as well. I'm quite in doubt if even hydrogen is the suitable energy carrier there. So maybe they need an e-fuel, because with an e-fuel I have quite a high energy density, gravimetrical energy density.
Okay.
And maybe this is the more suitable energy carrier there. But I think that the way is quite open in future. Thinking of these e-fuels or synthetic fuels, there we have, of course, again, the efficiency topic, because they are more energy consuming to produce, but the handling is quite easier.
Yeah.
And somewhere in the middle, I suppose, hydrogen will have its advantages. So, and as I have presented, the big advantage of hydrogen is I simply need electrical energy and a water connection, and I can produce my own energy carrier. And this is quite comfortable. You cannot do this with ammonia or synthetic natural gas or methanol. These energy carrier always need to be produced big scale in chemical processes.
Yes, so for your information, in the 1980s, I was involved with a lot of guys of how to burn hydrogen in a carburetor engine, auto engine, and we got the hydrogen from a fertilizer plant, and we sent it into the engine. We started the engine. It was all right when it was running slow. When you put it up on speed, it was a huge explosion.
Okay.
We found the turbine about 60 or 70 meters away.
Oh, good. Yeah, there is a company in Germany situated in Munich. They retrofit diesel engines or upgrade diesel engines to operate with pure hydrogen.
Okay.
But in this case, of course, you have, of course, again, the low efficiency of burning, simply burning it. And you have also the topic of emissions.
We also did some experience here in Iceland regarding buses from Mercedes. I think we got 4 buses running on hydrogen. And I simply don't know the situation or how it went. But what I knew was that the fuel tanks, the hydrogen tanks, they had a problem with small cracks in the tanks because of the size of the hydrogen molecules that went in between the steel molecules and made those cracks.
Okay. Actually, according to our engineers, this isn't a problem at all today.
Okay.
So because they are in the modern tanks, there are layers inside, so they're built of several layers. So the diffusion process of the small molecule of hydrogen, because you do not get the single atom of the hydrogen, you always have the molecule. So H2, of course, 2 hydrogen atoms. And so a diffusion or a loss of hydrogen, it's a myth, simply. This is a case with liquid hydrogen. There you have the boil-off losses.
Yeah.
But with hydrogen stored in gas form, this isn't a problem, and even the material will stand the hydrogen itself. So this isn't a problem at all right now. The problem is more or less that hydrogen has quite a high gravimetrical energy density, but a low volumetrical energy density. And this is why you have to compress it to achieve a high energy density for transportation use cases. But we expect that the material-based storage for hydrogen in, for example, metal organic frameworks will come in the second half of this of the 20s.
Okay.
It's getting ready, and I think this is also what we need in the decentralized utilization in regards of seasonal storage of hydrogen, because otherwise you have to install these very big silos where you store hydrogen at a low pressure level. This is at least cost consuming and also area consuming.
What about cooling of the hydrogen?
Yeah, energy intensive, you can do it.
Yeah.
Especially if you want to refuel your vehicle fast, you have to recool it.
Yeah.
But cooling it down to minus 273 to get liquid hydrogen is quite energy intensive. And then again, as I said, you have the boiling of losses, because simply the pressure rises, the warmer the hydrogen gets in the tank. And once the pressure exceeds a certain threshold, the hydrogen is blown off and lost.
Yeah.
But if you can use it directly when it gets delivered, it's maybe a feasible case, but energy consuming to cool it down to that to almost 0.0.
But okay, any questions, guys? More questions? Engar spurningar, strákar?
Normally people are asking about the costs.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if they went to sleep or something.
Or maybe they are already
Because we can't see their pictures.
for lunch. They're out for lunch.
Don't for that, maybe. Shall we then call it a day?
Maybe ask you.
Something?
Pardon?
You want to add something?
I want to add something to what? To which question?
No, anything. If you want to add something to your presentation or what we have been talking about.
Oh no, I just wanted to ask about what's going on in Iceland. You said the plan is to install a 10 megawatt electrolysis, or
Yes.
what kind of technology is it? Alkaline or PEM?
It's using hydroelectrical power station to send the electricity into a what do you call it? Just two fuel cells that will produce the oxygen and the hydrogen.
Okay, the electrolyzer. And who uses the hydrogen produced? You want to export it or use it directly?
Yeah, no, we want to export it to Europe.
To Europe.
Yeah, they have been talking to the harbor in Rotterdam, if they have facilities to store it or to transport it somewhere. But I don't think it's I've not gone any further than that.
Okay, and when will the project start, or is it right now an idea, or do you have already the investors, or who is erecting it?
I think it's a national power company in Iceland called Landsvirkjun. They are the biggest one in producing electricity, and there might be one or two other energy companies that are trying to go in that field, but in a smaller scale.
So you rather export the hydrogen than using it by yourself for emission-free mobility, or?
It all depends. It depends on the infrastructure, how things will develop. If we have a lot of hydro or fuel cell cars, then we'll use some of it in Iceland. And there are some cars that are running around here in Reykjavik that are fuel cell cars that use hydrogen.
Hyundais and Toyotas?
Yeah. Yeah. Especially Toyota is they have been betting on hydrogen for a long time, but we don't see the solutions here on the streets.
Yes, we have 3 Hyundai fuel cell electric cars in our own company, but we are operating by ourselves.
Okay.
But at least unfortunately, there are only 2 car manufacturers and some minor pilot scale projects at BMW or Mercedes. But the industry, I suppose, is more focusing on the commercial vehicles, not on the private ones.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Then I would thank you very much for your input, Mr. Schuster.
Yes, of course. Thank you for inviting me.
Hopefully we can make a contact maybe next May.
Next May?
Yeah.
Yes, of course. Please. I don't know if I think you have a direct contact in Perfect Welding.
Yeah.
So maybe it makes sense to have quite a trip here in Austria.
Mm-hmm.
You can visit the SOLHUB then in Steinhaus, and probably you have also some business to do with the Perfect Welding, I suppose.
Yeah.
So maybe you can combine your visit.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about.
But you're very welcome, of course.
Thank you very much. Já, ef ekki að segja svo lokið, drengir.
Jú, þetta bara alveg glæsilegt.
Takk fyrir, Bjössi minn.
Það svo sem verið gaman að spyrja kannski hvort það sé komin einhver viðhalsreynsla á þessar stöðvar.
Viðhals, já.
Hvað þarf marga vélstjóra til að halda þessu gangandi?
1,5.
Is there any experience regarding the maintenance of the hydro stations or the hydrogen stations?
Yes. It depends a little bit on the extent of the hydrogen station. If you want to refuel cars at the pressure level of 700 bars or commercial vehicles at 300 bars, a typical number is between 2 to 5% per year of the capex what you have to invest in maintenance purposes. And the electrolysis itself, you simply do not have to maintain a lot, but the compression, because there you have the moving parts.
Yeah.
Because it's a mechanical compression, and you have to do regular inspections in the pressure tanks.
Svarar þetta spurningunum, Bjössi?
Já, þetta gott hjá honum alls saman. En það væri gaman að kannski að fá að nálgast þennan fyrirlestur hjá okkur einhvern tímann seinna og skoða þetta aðeins betur.
Þá kostar hann, sko.
Ég veit það, þá kem ég bara í kaffi.
Now they were just asking if because we are recording your presentation, and they were just asking how to get hold of it. I will just send it to them. It's not a problem for me.
Yeah. Because of I have another question regarding the 10 megawatt plant you want to install. Are there any expectations about the cost for 1 kilogram of hydrogen produced there?
I have not seen that.
Okay.
But probably they have it somewhere in
Yeah, I
the
think
company.
as well, yeah.
But I have to figure that out.
But at least it's green hydrogen when because you're operating it with the river power plant and Run River power plant.
Yeah.
Yes, the levelized costs of electricity are decreasing and decreasing. So, and this is also why green hydrogen will getting cheaper and cheaper. But if we will ever get to match gray hydrogen produced out of natural gas will depend on the carbon pricing, more or less.
Yeah. And taxes.
And taxes, of course. And this is also probably an advantage of a decentralized system. Of course, you cannot produce hydrogen as cheap as with a big scale electrolyzer, but at least you do not have to pay taxes, or you do not have to pay margins for a supplier who is delivering it to you. So this is what we're betting on, that hydrogen.
Okay. Again, thank you, Mr. Sester.
Yes, thank you very much for having me. If there are any questions at the later stage or will arise tomorrow or the week after tomorrow or whatever, you can contact me via email.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. So, all the best, and hope you enjoyed the quite short presentation.
We did that, thank you very much. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, and goodbye.
Takk fyrir þetta var fínn fyrirlestur hjá okkur.